Today I'm going to be talking about 3 reasons why you should choose this Zenith El-Primero Chronomaster Original over the Rolex Daytona. Let's get started. First reason is the heritage of this watch. So if you look at the history behind the Zenith El-Primero compared to the Rolex Daytona, you can tell that the Zenith El-Primero is a very special watch. So in 1963, the Rolex Cosmograph was launched, or the predecessor to the Rolex Daytona was launched, in hopes of going to the moon, as they submitted it to NASA, but of course, story goes that it did not pass the test, and the Omega Speedmaster ended up becoming the moon watch. So Rolex people were back in the drawing board and said, hey look, what are we going to do with this watch now? Since it didn't go to the moon, we obviously can't say it went to the moon. So they rebranded it eventually to the Rolex Daytona. In fact, the name Daytona didn't even stick at first in the reference number 6239, where you can see the name Cosmograph on the dial. And in 1965, after that, they sort of changed it in the reference 6240, where you see that they have the name Daytona, but it's not always the case that they have the name Daytona. It's just in some of the cases. As you can see in the Paul Newman Daytona, which is one of the most famous watches ever, has the word Daytona on it. And that was the time where they started associating with the Daytona race in America. And the marketing geniuses thought that, hey look, let's use the name Daytona. It's probably much better, right? I mean, it's going to sell more watches, and at that time, Rolex just wanted to sell that watch. In fact, Daytona was one of the poorest selling watches during that time, and the Daytona watch did not sell well at all. In fact, even the Paul Newmans and the other watches, they weren't very popular compared to the other watches. The history of the Rolex El-Primero, on the other hand, it's much more interesting. If you look at the history of the Zenith El-Primero, which is this watch, you can tell that it was developed for one purpose and one purpose only: to be the first automatic chronograph in the marketplace. Now, did they achieve it? Well, it's questionable. Some say that Seiko actually came up with the first automatic chronograph, but in any case, the Zenith El-Primero, the predecessor to this watch, was actually launched in 1969 in the model reference numbers A384, A385, and A386. A384 being the very popular model, and of course the A386, which became the predecessor to this watch today. So this watch was designed with a very clear and specific purpose, which was to be an automatic chronograph watch. And at that time, it was launched, it was a 3600 VPH watch, and it started being popular and stuff. I'm not sure how popular they were, but they were very well known at the time. Which comes to the second reason why I feel that this El-Primero is better than the Rolex Daytona. If you look at the movement of this watch, you can easily tell that this movement was designed to be seen and to be shown on case back. In fact, it was so elaborately designed, the movement. If I show you close up of the movement, the skeletonized movement, the fact that you can see the winding, you can see all the details of the watch, you can see how as you press the levers, you start and stop the chronograph. Everything was designed in a modular way. So it's not like one of those modules where there's a movement and they slapped on the chronograph module on top. This is an entire chronograph movement built from the ground up for a specific purpose, and was done by Zenith. In fact, the movement was so great, it's so famous and so reliable, even though it's running at 3600, 36,000 VPH, that Rolex Daytona actually used their movement. They engaged Zenith to build their movements for their Rolex Daytonas in the 2000s. Can you believe it? A company like Rolex today, I'm telling you, using an outhouse movement, which you cannot imagine, because Rolex didn't have the technology, they didn't have the expertise. In fact, until today, the very famous Rolex reference number 1650 Daytonas are known as a Rolex Zenith Daytona models.
So before I continue with the video, let's talk about the sponsor of the video, which is TwoSecondsWatch.com. So we have curated pre-owned watches, including this watch which is for sale, and many others. And we also have watch straps for you to purchase, leather watch straps that we feature here. You can find them on the website as well. Thank you very much, and let's go on with the video.
So the movement is no slouch. Of course, if you look at the latest Rolex movements, the 41300s and the latest models in the Rolex Platinum series that was launched in 2023, you can tell that Rolex has built off the movement and changed a lot of it. And of course, they built their own movement as well. But it cannot be denied that this movement and this brand, this El-Primero watch, the movement of this watch, the predecessor to this is the latest in-house movement, 3600. The predecessor to this El-Primero Chronomaster original the movement actually powered Rolex Daytonas. So yeah, you aren't really getting a slouch in the movement for this watch. And honestly, it is a better story to tell than the Rolex Daytona. You can tell people that, hey, look, this is the watch that Rolex Daytona had to source the movement from for, a long time, almost 10 years, or possibly longer, I'm not very sure. So that is something that is interesting to note of, and probably a starter topic with people as well, rather than just, hey, I'm wearing a Rolex and hey, look at it, it's a Daytona. If we come to the third and last reason, is the availability of this Zenith Chronomaster original. Now, you can find this in the pre-owned market. They're at good prices, they're off recommended retail prices, they're cheaper. And of course, the other thing which I really like about this is you can actually walk to an AD or go to a Zenith store and buy this watch. Yes, it's available, you can buy this watch, or you can get the Zenith Chronomaster Sport if you like it to look a little more like the Daytona. And you don't have to play the waitlist game, which Rolex is so well known for, and the ADs and the whole positioning of, only certain elite people can get the Rolex Daytona, with the brand snobbery and all the kinds of things that you hear that people experience with the Rolex ADs. In fact, I'm really put off on Rolexes as well. I love their watches, but I'm really put off with the way it's positioned in the brand marketplace and how they position it and how they treat their potential customers. Maybe you have a better experience, but put it in the comments down below. If you want to find out more about this watch, you can watch the video here. I'm going to link it up there and in the description below, where I speak about it in detail, a very in-depth review of this Zenith Chronomaster original 38mm. It is a fantastic watch, and in my opinion, a true Rolex Daytona contender, an alternative, and possibly better than the Rolex Daytona. So tell me what you think. Leave your comments below. Is this Zenith Chronomaster original better than the Rolex Daytona? Let me know. Thank you very much, and thanks for watching. And if you like this type of content, please remember to subscribe and to like our videos. It really does help us to create more content like this. Thank you very much and have a great day.